Thank you, everybody. I'm Giacomo Loi. I work at the Hebrew and Comparative Literature Department at the University of Haifa. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my research with this presentation entitled Encountering the Other, Encountering Myself, Greco-Roman Antiquity and Jewish Modernity in the Mirror. So I want to dwell one moment on the image, on rather the metaphor of the mirror. Now, you would guess that the moment that we define our identity, who we are, what we do, is the moment that we look at ourselves in the mirror. We see our reflection, just like Caravaggio's Narcissus. However, I want to take you back to your adolescence years. I know it's quite a tedious process. Isn't it the moment when you define yourself against who you are not? You're not your parents. You're not your friends, you're not your siblings. That's the moment when you define yourself. Is it the same with cultures? Is it the same with national identities? Is it the same with ethnic identities? I think so. So what I'm interested in is actually the way in which modern Jewish identity and culture, and particularly modern Hebrew culture, has defined itself against its ancient other, the Greco-Roman world. So I want to give you one small, maybe unexpected example. Anybody can help me with this? What is this? Those of you who were born in Israel, those of you who have this symbol in their passport now? Anybody? Yes, this is the seal, the official emblem of the Jewish state. And leave aside the writing, Israel, leave aside the branches. What's in the middle there is the menorah, the ritual candelabra, that is a quintessentially Jewish symbol, right? We have many, many, many representations of this candelabra from Jewish antiquity, everywhere, all kinds of monuments. But this one, this candelabra, that figures in the official emblem of the only Jewish state in the world, comes from a Roman monument. The Roman monument that stands still today in Rome, the Arch of Titus, that celebrated the victory of the Romans against the Jews in the 1st century CE. So the symbol that represents Jewish identity in the world today actually comes from an image of defeat, from the image of the booty from the Jerusalem temple that was destroyed by the Romans and taken to Rome. And you can see here the triumphal procession, and you can see here the arch. So what I do in my research is I try to understand where do the Jewish and the classical, so the Greco-Roman, meet. I guess you could say that I have two hats. As a cultural historian and as a literary scholar, I look at the presences of Greco-Roman elements, be that a mythological story, a literary character, an historical character, a place, a statue, in modern Jewish literature, and particularly modern Hebrew literature. And sometimes I look also at figurative arts, you can see that I like that, and at cinema. From the end of the 19th century, when modern Jewish nationalism emerges, and therefore modern Hebrew literature emerges, till, I want to say, yesterday night. So I have lots of new work piling up every day. And if I have to invite you into my lab, let's say, you could say that I am a cartographer. So I try to visualize modern Jewish literature, modern Hebrew literature, as a map with two dimensions. One is the spatial one, of course, but you won't find in my map cities and oceans and lakes. You will find themes. What are the themes most common, most important in modern Jewish literature? Jewish identity, for example, or war heroism, or, after World War II, the Holocaust. And the other dimension, I already introduced it now, is the dimension of time. How does the image, how does the map change over time? Does it look the same in 1890? Does it look different in 2010 and in between? So what I do when I have this body of literature mapped is I try to understand where I put the pins, you can see in the slide, trying to understand what themes are connected to Greco-Roman culture, what themes are, for what themes is Greco-Roman culture mobilized? So for example, can you talk about modern Jewish identity using classical antiquity? Yes, you can. We're going to see that in a moment. Can you talk about the trauma of the Holocaust using classical myth? Yes, you can. And the other question is, how does the presence of Greco-Roman culture change over time? Are European Jews more likely to use Greco-Roman culture because everything looks Greco-Roman in Europe, or are they more likely to do that when they move here to Israel? And I also ask if Greek culture or Roman culture are more present in this map. What does it say about the relationship the Jewish culture has developed with these distinct cultures and the way that they look over time? And I also sometimes have to field questions of absence. Themes like LGBTQ identities, for example, where you would expect the Greeks and the Romans to be everywhere, suddenly they're nowhere. I want to give one textual example before I finish. Everybody here has at least heard the name Max Nordau. There's not one city, not even one little village in Israel that doesn't have a street named after Max Nordau. He was a Jewish leading Zionist. And the text that I give you, it's actually in between cultures. It's from the end of the 19th century in German, but without that text, you cannot understand Hebrew or Israeli culture even. So Max Nordau, as a convicted Zionist, thought that the Jewish people should have some kind of a state, right? But he had a problem, that he thought that Jewish men, and the gender dimension is key here, were not up for it because they were weak, old, and effeminate. So they were men, but they were like a little bit like women, and I'm sorry for the kind of prejudices that he reveals. What's his recipe to solve this problem? Well, he takes one character while inaugurating the gym club in Berlin, the first Jewish gym club in Berlin. He takes a character that we knew very little about, Bar Kokhba. We knew two things about him: that he had existed, more or less, we were sure about that, and that he had fought against the Romans. And he uses that ancient Jewish hero in a way that he proposes him to the Jewish people, by filling that empty character with the features of his enemies. Because if you fight the Romans, well, you need to be a little strong. And so he says, Bar Kokhba was a hero who refused to know defeat. Bar Kokhba was the last embodiment in world history of a bellicose militant Jewry. So Jews of his time were weak, and now they have a model to be strong. And then he continues, our new muscular Jews, have not yet regained the heroism of our forefathers, who in large numbers entered the sport arenas in order to take part in the competition and to pit themselves against the highly trained Hellenistic athletes and the powerful Nordic barbarians. But morally, even now the new muscle Jews surpass their ancestors. For the ancient Jewish circus fighters were ashamed of their Judaism and tried to conceal the sign of the covenant, that is circumcision, by means of a surgical operation, while the members of the Bar Kokhba club loudly and proudly affirmed the national loyalty. So the Jewish men of his time are weak, now they're going to be strong. They are old, and now they look like powerful young athletes who run into the arena, which is of course a Greco-Roman space, to fight other people. And they are effeminate, and this scene looks like a testosterone-filled arena. That's more or less what happens in this statue. The Bar Kokhba in Greek garb, or actually in Greek nakedness, as a hero. What Nordau and this statue are doing are rewriting Jewish identity, are rewriting the Jewish body and Jewish sexuality. And that's what I mean when I say looking in the mirror of the other. Thank you.